Hi, I'm Sam Smith, and welcome. The Sports Bar is open. Welcome to the Sports Bar, everybody. I'm here with our usual bar patrons, if you will, Travis Stanley, also Chris Warner, and Robin Palmer. And we're going to get right into our first subject tonight. And it's always one of those situations where you're looking at the big leagues, the NBA, the National Hockey League. We also have some other things we're going to talk about. Let's talk about NBA. Fellas, Golden State comes up and gets a big victory. They have 3-2. Is this thing over?
I guess I'll take this one. It pains me to say this as a Cavaliers fan, but I would have to say that the season for the Cleveland Cavaliers is probably over. And unfortunately, it's no fault to LeBron James. It's no fault to the Cleveland Cavaliers other than injury. This series was one that was very close matched when you consider maybe Kyrie Irving playing in this series, Kyrie Irving being on Steph Curry. But without him, LeBron has shown that even if he stands on his head and has triple-double after triple-double after triple-double, it's not enough. And the team runs out of gas right at the end. And when you're talking about Golden State, who can just all of a sudden turn on, I mean, when it gets down to the end and you're tired, that's not the team you want to be against.
Did Cleveland fall into a trap there going and playing small ball?
I was actually about to bring that up. That's sort of how they tired themselves out. They tried to match what Golden State wanted to do rather than doing their own thing, keeping their big men in, and just trying to play a physical game in the paint. They switched to small, and it kind of killed them. The matchups just weren't there, like on Steph Curry and people like that, and they just didn't play the way that the Cleveland Cavaliers are supposed to play.
When you take a look at Cleveland, you know, their big guys are not overly great guys in scoring, but they take up a lot of room and make a lot of defensive deals on the inside. And Travis, that had to be one of the differences, certainly that small ball not going big, even though Golden State was going to go with a smaller center. And Iguodala, you had to kind of counter that somehow, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mozgov, he was totally underused, in this last game. I feel like even when they do go small, Golden State that is, it's not necessarily, you don't have to pull Mozgov. He's still a big guy who can protect the rim. So I think using him more would be a terrific option for Cleveland just to, compete offensively because Mozgov can score when in position and in easy places to score, right around the rim, putbacks. If you get him off the block, he's not going to be able to, create for himself. There was a period in last night's game where he gets the ball 2 feet off the block and falls on his face, and so that's just not who he is and how he can score.
What about the MVP? Obviously, Curry has to step up as not only the league MVP but also playoffs. But Iguodala starts the last two games, guys. This is a guy that played as kind of a journeyman at Philadelphia, if you will, played very well, but really didn't get the press. But now all of a sudden, the last two games he starts. He guards LeBron James. Yep. You can't stop the guy. He gets 40 points anyway, but at least you kind of neutralize him enough that he can't pass the ball to somebody else and has to make things happen on his own. But I think Iguodala, in my estimation, is one of the best players going on the floor right now.
He's been terrific, and the thing that really makes him such a big part to this is that he's not the same size as LeBron James, but he's smart enough with the size that he does have, which is maybe an inch or two less and a few less pounds. He knows how to use his body in ways that cut out the passing lanes, like you said, and he hits clutch threes. The only thing that's to knock about his game is the fact that he does not hit free throws. And it's interesting because he's a career 70% shooter, and yet in this series he went 2 for 11 last night. He's shooting like 40% free throw percentage the entire playoffs. If he rounded out that part of his game, I would say undoubtedly MVP in this series. Just the way that he's been able to come off the bench and now get pushed into the starting lineup and do what he's done. And to be honest, Curry, while he was the league MVP this year, I wouldn't say he's had an impressive series until late. The first few games, I mean, hit or miss. He didn't take over a game in the way that LeBron James was.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
But towards the end here, you get 37 points in the last game. If he comes out and plays that same way in the next game, it's hard to say that he's not going to get it. But Iguodala definitely deserves some credit for what he's done for that team.
Let me mention a name from out of the past named Ronnie Cycler, who played at Syracuse, came with the Miami Heat when I was with them, and a very poor foul shooter. But one of the reasons that he was a poor foul shooter is he tried so many different things. Left foot forward, right foot forward, both feet on the line, and he tried so many things inside the game. Well, that's not where you try that. Yeah. So I asked Ron Rothstein, the coach, one day. I played at Texas Tech and shot nearly 90% from the foul line when I was there. So I know how to shoot free throws. Nobody's guarding you. You're 15 feet from the hoop, for God's sake. So I worked with him, and he went from shooting 48% in 1 month to shooting 62, simply because he got in a rhythm and did that. Iguodala looks like he's another one of those guys that's looking at that. You'd think guys in the big leagues would know by this time how to shoot free throws, or at least try to get it close to the rim anyway.
Yeah, but I don't think him shooting a low percentage is indicative of him not having work ethic as far as not working on his free throws. Because I remember him playing in Philadelphia. Do you guys remember? I don't remember him being a terrific three-point shooter in Philadelphia. In fact, I remember him being a poor three-point shooter. And him just relying on his athleticism, and I'm just going to dunk over you. Yep. I am going to take it to the hole, and you cannot stop me. So that's obviously a part of his game he's worked on a lot. So I agree with you. Maybe I think a lot of it's between the ears too.
Oh sure, I agree.
Absolutely.
That probably more than anything. If he just gets out of his head and says, you know what, I'm an NBA player. I've been playing this game for X amount of years. I can hit this.
Yeah. Robin, it's nice to have new teams playing for the national finals. I mean, we've had Boston many years, San Antonio, which I was with for 12 years, enjoyed some great runs with them. But it's nice to have new teams going for the title, I think, isn't it?
I mean, it's new teams, but I mean, you still are bringing back LeBron into it, which is, but it is nice. And I feel like throughout this season, and even before, like last season, we saw the rise of, the Splash Brothers down in Golden State. And so, we've kind of been feeling like this was coming. But seeing these new faces, it's great to see, and it's also bringing a lot of competition because a lot of people haven't been in this situation before, and so it's adding just a lot more flair to it, and a lot more is riding on the line to bring that title home to the cities that they play for. But yeah, one thing that I did want to say still about Iguodala is going back to the free throws and things like that. It's just I don't think it's more like him not practicing. It's probably more of him practicing or like focusing more on other things. Like he's going in against, as LeBron says, the best player in the world at this time. So I mean, I'm sure
at this time may be the key word there, right? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. But I mean, it's just if I was him, I would be focused on defense, shutting down LeBron, which is what he's been doing. And so, free throws are important, but I'm sure, like in his mind, he wasn't planning on starting and playing through everything and drawing all these fouls. He was planning on just playing defense on LeBron and letting Steph do his job.
Since the Warriors moved from Philadelphia, by the way, out to San Francisco, they have played in 3 finals, 64, 67, and then they won in 75. For Cleveland, only 1 appearance in the finals. They lost to San Antonio back in 2007. So this is kind of rarefied air for both of these teams. And game, obviously, number 6 coming up in Cleveland. Robin, how are you picking it?
I want the Cavs to win, but just the depth, the play style, everything that the Warriors have at this point, and without the Cavaliers having, Kevin Love or Kyrie Irving still, it's going to go to the Warriors.
Chris, how do you like?
It's hard to say this as a Cavs fan, but I would have to say that this series is probably over. But I don't think Game 6 will be a loss. I think it'll be probably a close game, and Cleveland pulls it out in the end. But with that being said, they don't have enough left for 2 games. They don't have enough left to go back into Golden State. So we'll see a victory, in my opinion, in this next game. But it's not going to be enough to spark that win. We
got 2 rising seniors with Cleveland. We got our rising junior. What do you think here, Travis?
I agree. I think Cleveland will get the win in Game 6. I think probably in Game 7 they'll fall in Golden State. But for Game 6, if they do win, they got to get some production from maybe Mozgov, J.R. Smith. LeBron cannot be the only offensive option. Yeah. And not only that, but he can also not be the only person facilitating. Last night he went for, I think it was 40, 16, and 11 or something like that. So someone else has to be able to create off the dribble and help some of his teammates get their own game going.
Well, LeBron only had 4 points in the third period, and that's when Golden State took over and eventually got a double-figure lead. So there's so much weight on his back, and I think you can almost see it in his face.
He accounted for 70 total points in that game.
Yeah.
You can't have that from one guy. You just can't. The numbers are amazing and they look great when you put them up on the, when you're looking at the box score. But it's not enough to win. Exactly, it's a team effort. And if they can't create more than 15 to 20 points when LeBron James is not on the floor or not the main guy, you just can't win in the finals. You can't do it.
I think we're in for 7 games. I think Cleveland wins 6 at home.
Yep.
I think the Cleveland fans they're so hungry, and LeBron's going to whatever ounce of energy he's got left. I look at Cleveland to win, but go back to Golden State, and I think Golden State will be the champions. Now we go with the guys that put a stick in their hands now. The National Hockey League. This has been a great series, Robin. I think people really enjoyed this series between the Blackhawks, experience, and the very young Lightning. And I think it's going to be a very good one, even though the Blackhawks have been very good in the third period, particularly to win games.
Well, I mean, not even just like the experience that the Blackhawks have, because a lot of their veteran players at the start of the series, like when the Lightning went up 2-1, just they haven't been playing the way that they have. And it's the Blackhawks' depth that has really brought them back into it. They've been substituting players who have made just key efforts into winning these games. And also just the last game that they played when the Lightning's keeper came out and just left the goal wide open by running into one of his players. It's simple mistakes that are really costing the Lightning a lot of these games.
Blackhawks had experience, Chris or Travis. Is that a key here?
I think it's like he said, experience with your depth, not just having your main guys, Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane, those guys. It's not the fact that they've had experience here, because that's not necessarily who they're getting the production out of, especially Kane, who hasn't had a goal. You're talking about guys like Antoine Vermette, who's got 2 game-winning goals in this series. Chris Versteeg, who's been on and off the bench. And the last game, the guy who was starting in his place didn't really produce. They put in Versteeg. He's the one who has the assists on the game-winning goal. And he's been here before. He's a guy who's been in and out of the lineup with Chicago for years. And so they're getting production from there. And even more than that, it's also experience at goaltender. Corey Crawford, not the best goalie in the league by any stretch, but when he gets to these moments, if you look at the last few games, Tampa Bay has controlled the tempo in the last, I would say, probably 5 minutes of each game. Really putting pressure on Corey Crawford.
Well, they've actually outshot him 27-15 in the last 2 periods. So Crawford definitely is a man stepping up here, that's for sure, for the Blackhawks. Any comments on what to expect?
Well, I don't know. In my opinion, experience wins championships, and I think that the Blackhawks will probably clinch this series.
One goal games.
Yep.
This is the kind of series that everybody, if you're a TV fan or a person in the stands, this is the kind of hockey games you like to see. I do Big Ten hockey for the Big Ten Network and also for American Sports Network. And I've done some 8-1s and 7-2s, but I guarantee you there's nothing better than getting those one goal games and also getting into the overtime and then the shootout. Big Ten has the shootout because they want to get some points on the board to try to get their champions. Only 6 teams play in the Big Ten, even though Arizona State and Southern Cal are trying to get D1 hockey, and they would come into the Big Ten, not next year, but the following year. But I think it's really good. And the fans get so excited on these one goal games. And particularly, as you pointed out, if a goaltender standing on his ear. If this guy's got a great night going, to me, that's the greatest part of hockey is the way they're playing.
And what's making this series exciting is the fact that Tampa Bay in a 2-1 game, Tampa Bay's offense is so dynamic that this could be a 2-4 game all of a sudden. They score goals in bunches, and so yes, you're watching this close game and just, oh my gosh, how is this going to play out, And the thing about it is you always have to wonder, will they do this? And when you consider the lack of experience or the lack of ability really on both ends from goaltending, these games have the ability to blow wide open that quickly. And it just hasn't happened yet, but I don't think that means that it won't in the last 2 games. But yeah, close series are great. It's so fun to watch. But one thing I will say for the sake of Tampa Bay is close games are also very deflating. When you, like I said, have the possessions and you're constantly putting shots on goal and you can't get it in and you lose 2-1, you lose 2-1, it's very deflating, even going home, to say, okay, we just can't seem to put the puck in the net. And I wonder how that's going to play out for Tampa Bay for the rest of the series.
How big are those blunders, as you pointed out, Robin, earlier? How difficult is it to overcome things like that? Is that something a coach at his skate around that morning saying, fellas, is it just between the ears, so to speak, as Travis talked about some basketball a moment ago?
I think the biggest part of those blunders is just coming back from them because the morale just goes so far down. You're constantly thinking like, what if that didn't happen? What if I didn't come out of the goal right there? What if I, could have done something else to stop this? And I think a lot of it comes from the fact that the Lightning is a very inexperienced team. They haven't been here before. It's a young team, and they're getting antsy and making mistakes. The Blackhawks, this would be, if they win this, it would be the third championship in 6 years or something, and just they know what they need to do at this point, and that's why. Like at the start, the Lightning came out strong, but it's slowly creeping back to the Blackhawks because they've been here, they know the mentality, and they're not going to make these simple mistakes because they're not as antsy, they're not as on edge, they're calm, they know what to do here.
A stat I would put on the bulletin board in the Lightning's locker room is that Chicago, the Blackhawks, with all of the success they had, have not won the National Hockey League championship on their home ice since 1938. So if I'm the Lightning going, hey, they don't do well at home, let's beat them and get back back to Tampa Bay. You got to play on some kind of positive there, and it's just like our Appalachian State football team. Once they start finding that positive, this is a team, and certainly coming up this year, Coach Satterfield with so many returning stars. This is a team, if they play the way they're supposed to, don't make mistakes, and play with that enthusiasm and confidence. That's what you're going to find is a great year for Appalachian State. That's what you're going to find certainly with the Lightning as well. Any overall picks? Can Chicago wrap it up?
I still want the Lightning to win. I think that if they take the time and they discuss what they need to do, they have the players, they have the energy, they have everything to get those goals, make it more than just a one goal game. They have the ability to do so. It's just, as you said, all between the ears. They have to focus in on it. So I still think the Lightning has a shot.
Two predictions, actually. Two predictions. Chicago will win the series, and not only that, I bet you Patrick Kane scores the game-winning goal to end it, because that's just what he does, and he hasn't shown up in this series. He won a cup before in an overtime goal or last-second goal, and I just think he's going to put the exclamation point on this series victory, and they'll get their third Stanley Cup in 6 years.
Wow, Travis, sounds like it's loaded here, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I would like to say, as a casual hockey fan, it's been a very entertaining series to watch, but I gotta. Like I said earlier, I got to go with the experience with the Blackhawks. I'd say they probably wrap it up.
My father-in-law, by the way, has his computer, and he's able to get on apptv.com, and he will see the sports show. And if I said anything besides Tampa Bay, he would beat me to a pulp. He lives down in Clearwater. So I'm going to say that the Lightning will win this, take it back to Tampa, but I think the Blackhawks will eventually win it. Sorry, Pop. Now, let's turn our attention, on the pitch, if you will. And this is, of course, where the ladies of the United States are playing in what is called the World Cup Canada. They're in Group D, and they're doing very, very well so far. And it's interesting, Robin, when you take a look at how this has kind of come down, is the fact that, of course, they beat Australia 3-1, and then, of course, had the 0-0 against Sweden. Interesting, the two coaches, a new coach and the old coach in the United States against each other. But do you see this team being as good as we've seen them in the Olympic Games, or better, or where do you see them right now?
I think they have the potential to make it extremely far in this. They definitely have the offense, and we have a good goalkeeper in Hope Solo. They need to make sure that they don't get cocky or anything. They can't just sit back on these victories and be like, oh yeah, we're one of the best teams out there. They have to keep going forward. They have to keep pushing. They have to keep doing what they've been training to do. And as long as they do that, I think they're in for a good run.
Yeah, coming off the game from Sweden, where you're talking about a 0-0 draw, it's going to be, can they find production when it matters?
Yeah.
Not winning 3-1 games. It's going to be when you're playing close games against teams, potentially Brazil, potentially Germany, potentially France. When you get out of that and into those games, can you find offensive production when it matters? Because big wins over teams that were marginally equal to or a little bit better than, not that impressive on the World Cup stage, because those aren't the teams you're going to see at the end typically.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going with, is they have to keep that mentality, because you win one, you draw 0-0 the other, and they realize that not every team is going to be easy, and so having that tie actually probably will help them out in the long run, because they already see that they are in for a challenge coming up.
Interesting enough, the coach of Sweden is Pia Solhage, and she was the United States coach for 5 years, actually for 7, I think, and 5 years had a real great run. Now she's on the other side, and let me read a quote she has on some of the U.S. players here. This would fire me up like gangbusters. She makes these quotes that U.S. midfielder Carrie Lloyd is mentally fragile. Interesting. Talks about goaltender Hope Solo is a handful. You can kind of interpret that a lot of ways. And the other one I like is Abby Wallbach, the all-time great, should be a young lady coming off the bench and not starting for the U.S. If I'm these 3 players, playing against Sweden, obviously it comes out to be a draw, but that kind of fires me up here, Travis, to get going and playing some better
Well,
soccer.
Yeah, no, I agree. First of all, she's since backtracked, Sundhage that is, she's since backtracked from some of those statements. She said things like, well, I was just being candid, but and I could see
Candid, is that opposite of truthful as well?
Well, she's she has backtracked and said, in regards to like Hope Solo, she said, well, by handful I meant she's just a very live wire. She's an entertaining personality.
She is,
and
absolutely.
which she is, and we may or may not touch on her colored past in a way. But I don't think any of that was said in bad spirit. And two, well, I did think that the timing was a little odd because those comments came out. Right before that game. However, I did find out that interview was done months before.
Okay.
And the writer just released those comments. So obviously it sounds, I guess, worse than.
So
worse
these quotes from the Sweden coach, we can just kind of take these and throw them out the window.
Well,
It's part of it. I mean, as a coach, I would say, if I'm on Sweden's team hearing her say this, it pumps me up a little bit. I love to get a little bit of that energy before the game going in. Oh, we have the advantage, even though and you know what? This coach knows I have experience with these people. Yeah. So if I'm going to talk about them to my team knows I'm not some other coach who's never had any experience with them. I'm saying things that I've seen. Now, were they a little exaggerated maybe? I don't know. It's tough to say. I mean, for the U.S. though, they should have used that as a rallying cry. They really should have. The fact that all of a sudden these comments come out, I wonder if the U.S. had heard of them, considering that, like you said, they're 6 months old comments. I'm sure they've probably heard them. And so for it to now just make the news again, it should have been a rallying cry. And I mean, while it was a good game, I would have liked to see a little more pizzazz out of everyone out there as a result, especially Abby Wambach, because if she comes in and nets a goal, how do you prove the haters wrong? You get the goal to win the game, and it's like, who?
By the way, the U.S. will go against Nigeria as coming up on Tuesday, and they play out of Vancouver. So it should be interesting to see how they come up against Nigeria. We'll watch them. The men's team, this is kind of a strange team. In 2014, they really didn't have a very good year at all. The start of 2015, they probably just kind of had an elongation of 14. All of a sudden, they've come up with 3 consecutive wins over the Netherlands, Germany, and Mexico. Mexico first, and then the Netherlands and Germany. These are 3 big wins. Are they finally coming of age, or is this a team we're going to see eventually in the World Cup that can make some noise?
Well, I think one thing that we have to look at when we talk about the U.S.'s win over Germany is that Germany was coming off of multiple games and they didn't have much time to rest. A lot of their good players were pretty tired. They didn't have as much energy as we had.
Oh, wait a minute now. Come on. That's like their sneakers were too tight or something. Come on.
No. I mean, soccer takes a lot out of you. It's 90 minutes of just straight running down the field. But yeah, their captain Schweinsteiger, he said, if they had time to be ready and stuff, or if they had the energy to last throughout the whole game, it would have been different. And I mean, they had chances to bring it back. Like Sami Khedira hit the crossbar right at the end. If it was a little under, it would have been in. So they had the chance. It's just, they didn't finish. U.S. did. And just, I'm not going to say that, we should get too excited for anything at this time.
Right.
But we do have a chance to be great. We do. We just, like I was saying about the soccer team, we just can't lean back on these wins. We still have to keep going forward.
It's always nice to have that positive thing as far as we fans that are kind of following these teams, and it's certainly kind of goes over to the players as well. Once they build their confidence, it helps our confidence in saying, hey, we're going to do XXX. Two subjects I want to touch on very quickly here. That, of course, is Greg Hardy. He's still waiting for if he's going to be suspended for 10 games with the Dallas Cowboys or he's coming back. Any comments? We got just a couple of minutes here, guys.
I just don't see them lightening the penalties on domestic violence. They've taken a stance on it that is very strict, and Greg Hardy to come back. I mean, I don't necessarily see the penalty being reduced in any way because, like I said, the whole stance has been that you just can't do this now in today's league. And when you look at what I do think is a little hypocritical, though, is no further suspension for Adrian Peterson. If you're going to suspend Hardy, who basically missed all of last season as well, being on the commissioner's exempt list, how is Adrian Peterson going to be the one that plays? I think it has to do with the politics of the NFL.
Yeah. We've got just about a half a minute here, but the U.S. Open comes up on a links course out in Washington. Do you like to see players with a lot under par? Or you like to see the course being kind of like the winner in the U.S. Open?
Yeah, I don't like to see, the pros get out there. I mean, obviously they're way better than I will ever be. But if they go out there and they shoot 18 under, I feel like, wow, is this too easy? So I would much rather, I can tell, hey, this is challenging for them, and maybe the winner be one over.
I want to see the best be the best by overcoming, obstacles, difficult courses. I don't want to see them playing mini golf.
Well, that's our last call, and we hope you've enjoyed it, fellas. Another great show. And, of course, our sports bar is just about to kind of wrap up here. But please, we'll invite you to drop by again next Monday right here at 7 o'clock throughout the entire week. And, of course, enjoy all of the things that we're going to talk about and maybe get involved as well. For all of us here on the set and all of those behind the cameras, thanks for joining us. I'm Sam Smith. Have a good week. So long, everybody.